Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at the DraftKings slate, 11 games, and we're coming over from FanDuel, and I think the theme there was we hate pricing. I think we both are in agreement that pricing is just kind of outrageous today. Not that it makes it tough, but it just seems like there's not a lot to balance things out.
Yeah, it's just kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of like when you get sand in your shoe at the beach. It's just like, yeah, I'm at the beach, but I'm gonna have to walk out with these shoes at some point.
Like,
That isn't.
why
That
are you
isn't.
not wearing flip-flops?
That's a good point. That's a questionable part of my character right now. But
It
yeah,
is.
you okay? The point remains. Everyone knows what I'm talking about anyway.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I mean, we were talking to, I mean, A's Rangers was one of our favorite games on FanDuel just because the A's pricing, and you come here and it's completely priced up. It's just
As it
there's
as it should be, to be fair. But
it should, but there really is not a lot of leeway as far as balancing out teams and using cores.
No, and even the top of that Rangers lineup is the same thing. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, Orioles and Rockies here. We'll start with the Rocky side of things. They're expensive. I mean, they're upper 4Ks. I mean, Story's 5,300. I don't mind the ballpark. I don't mind that change coming into Camden Yards, and especially against Giovanni Gallardo, who has a lot of 349 woba to lefties since last year. I like Blackman and Gonzalez, and obviously Arenado and Story are always in play.
Yeah, I like them. Sort of what you'd expect, I guess, for pricing in terms of them. It is expensive. They're sort of a tournament stack, but I'm actually looking more so at the Orioles side. One guy that I do like his price is Adam Jones. I think that's pretty reasonable for 3,600 against Jorge De La Rosa. Obviously, he's had his moments this year. I think Mark Trumbo is actually a pretty decent deal at 47 as well. Other than that, I'm not necessarily looking too strong at this lineup.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think the thing to be, there's a lot of right-handed bats in this Orioles lineup, but a lot of them kind of taken a year off from hitting either lefties well or always kind of really haven't. So I'm not completely in line with the Baltimore team, but obviously I think they do deserve a full stack just because of their upside, and De La Rosa does have that blow-up potential. The Chris Davison and Jonathan Scope prices here don't bother me as much as they did over on FanDuel. I could see definitely using them in GPPs.
Yep. That's fair. Again, it's slightly uncomfortable, but I'm okay with those prices.
Padres and Blue Jays next here, and we'll take a look at the Padres. I mean, I like Aaron Sanchez. I don't expect a ton of production, and you were talking. I mean, you were saying Matt Kemp. I mean, I'll let you give your line.
No, it's just he's been a really powerful hitter this year, and it just seems like he's the only guy with over 20 home runs that just constantly gets priced down. So under 4K once again. Not necessarily a target, but I mean, for that price, we know the power from this year. So even against righties at some points. So 3,900 is a decent deal for him.
Yeah, good ballpark there too. And we talked about FanDuel, about Ryan Schimpf. I mean, being pretty priced down and the power he has. A boomer bust guy, but I mean, there is a lot of upside for a cheap price tag. And given he's second base eligible here, makes it a little bit easier for me to deploy.
For sure. And I mean, only 3,200, 8 homers this month. Threw in a stolen base the other day. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect matchup, but 3,200, you don't really need to have a perfect matchup. You just need 1 or 2 hits, you know?
Yeah, you can knock around. I think there is some upside there in this ballpark against Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the Blue Jays side, I mean, expensive yet again.
A little better, though. It is a little better. Encarnacion's price, 4,700. Not great by any means, but I'll take it. That's borderline cash for me. But yeah, the Donaldson price is a little outrageous.
The Donaldson, the Michael Saunders at 4,900. It seems a little steep. I mean, obviously it's a great matchup. I like the Jays bats here. I think it's a good spot for them to do some damage. But yeah, I mean, it would basically mean I'm diving down to my SP2 position or going a little bit stars and scrubs to kind of get these Jays bats in, which is not always my favorite strategy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially tonight, I think we're just trying to mine some good plays from whatever lineup we can, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those obvious plays are priced up for a reason, so they're in a
Yeah.
good spot. You got to like the Jays here, but
Mhm.
prices are a bit beefy. Marlins Phillies next year. Jared Kozar versus Jeremy Hellickson, and Kozar was one of those interesting SP2 options to use, just because you look at this Phillies offense, they could be a little bit banged up and could be even worse off than what they usually are. Um, so I'm not really a fan of using Phillies here. I think really at their prices, Odobo Herrera is still kind of out of my range. I like him more in that mid four to low fours than anything.
Yeah. And I kind of semi facetiously mentioned Cozart. But I mean, at 4,900, what does he really need to get you? 10?
No, much higher than 10 for me. But to your point, yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to do a whole lot.
10 to, I mean, 15 probably then. But I mean, on a night like tonight, you might have to make one of those big punts to really get a lineup you truly want for batting. But yeah, obviously that's a deep, deep, deep. Back, 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 back. That was a really bad Chris Berman, by the way. Anyway,
It was a little too high pitched for Chris Berman.
yeah. In terms of the Marlins, though, Ozuna, you kind of like that price. Stanton, they're not giving you the discount like they did on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm not in love with this Marlins team. I mean, Hellickson can be an above average right hander at times. It just kind of depends if he's on or off. He was on in their last start against the Marlins. And when he has those secondary pitches working, he's fairly, fairly solid. So I'm not buying into the over 4.5 run total for the Marlins. I think you can kind of temper your expectations, but as usual, the outfield trio is kind of where you're looking for always that the run production comes from.
You know how I have officially determined that I'm not good at impressions? Because I always tell people the impression I do after I do them. That's usually for folks out there, that's usually a pretty good sign that you're not good at impressions. Like at your core that you got to tell people just so they actually know what you were doing.
Like, yeah, if you immediately say, "Hey, that was Chris Berman," right after, like that's
Yeah,
oh,
just
okay.
just a little self
Now I
aware.
see it.
Yeah, just a little self awareness lesson for y'all out there. If you're telling people what impression you're doing, might be time to call it a day with the impressions.
Yeah, I think that's wise words from Russ.
Except I'm gonna continue to do it. So
Cardinals and Mets here. Carlos Martinez versus Noah Syndergaard, and for me, definitely a stay away game as far as hitters go. I don't really like both sides. Um, I guess if I had to make a choice to pick one, it would be the Mets bats against Martinez, but I really can't really get behind them. A ton. But obviously, I think at their respective prices, it would be the most probably GPP stack that you could pull off tonight.
yeah, I guess if obviously Neil Walker's been struggling with something of late, and but he is 2,200 if he is in the lineup. Obviously, he's probably not going to be. Conforto though, 2,800 potentially batting at the end of the lineup. It's ugly, but I mean, if you're looking for deep tournament guys, I guess that's somewhere you could look.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. You look at Martinez. I mean, against lefties since last year, 327 WOBA, 1.05 runs per nine. Here, the Mets are actually priced down below what a normal kind of value line is. So I guess I don't mind it as a deep GPP option more so here than on FanDuel, where they were kind of just at that line where I didn't want to pay the prices.
Right, exactly.
So it's definitely high risk, high reward, and you're definitely going to get them at lower ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals bats, I don't see any that are really intriguing. They're all priced up, still in a 4K range for some of those guys that I don't like. And I'm not picking on Syndergaard one bit here.
Nope, I think this is pretty easy for us. So if they were priced down a few hundred more each, then maybe they'd be something I'd think about in a tournament one-off, but I don't feel comfortable doing that here.
Not me either. Tigers Red Sox here next. Justin Verlander versus Drew Pomeranz, and two, quality arms. And for me, this is just kind of a GPP game to target. And I'm not really in love with a lot of those Sox prices. I don't like Ortiz at 5.5. I think if I am taking shots, it's going to be with those guys who are in the fours and even in the threes.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, Verlander, last time he kind of got beat up was against a lefty strong team. So maybe take a look at Jackie Bradley, Travis Shaw at the end of that lineup there. But it's not like you're getting a big discount on Bradley, even though he's batting sixth. So that's kind of a bummer. But at the same time, the big hinge point here is Pomeranz and the Tigers lineup. I'm not sure what the ownership is going to look like with Pomeranz. I think it could go either way, but I think he's an interesting guy to get leverage plays against because I do still think he's going to be at least 15 to 20% owned in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Tigers bats tonight. I think just because that they've been so hit and miss against left-handers, and it kind of you look at guys like Cabrera and Castellanos and Martinez, and it kind of shows in their pricing that they haven't really hit lefties well this year. Kinsler's the only one who's really been consistent, may have been at a decent rate. But obviously, I mean, we know their upside, we know their power. It's a decent ballpark there for right-handers. I don't hate this Tigers team in GPPs, and it is the 1 through 6 with the most upside. They all have strong ISO numbers.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you can take one-offs with there, not looking at a stack, but I mean that one leverage play, they're going to be lower owned. And if you get a homer off it, you're looking at a pretty unique lineup.
Yeah, and one guy from the Red Sox that I like for a price tag is Hanley Ramirez at 3,700. Really nice price for a guy who is kind of heating up. And you do obviously look at Verlander. I mean, strong against both sides of the plate, but at that price, I'll take a shot at Hanley.
Yeah, only play Hanley if you like 3 home run games. That's kind of like the preliminary research reasoning for starting him. Three home run games probably.
The power's really come up from Hanley. I mean,
Yeah.
he's definitely kind of turned it around in that department.
Yeah, I think like 5 homers in his last 5 games or something like that. So it's definitely on the upswing.
Yeah. Diamondbacks and Brewers here, and this is kind of an expensive game, but definitely one that does have a lot of offense involved in a friendly ballpark. I like the Diamondbacks bats here. Obviously, Segura and Lamb are priced a little bit higher than they were over on FanDuel, but I still think you got to like him given the matchup against Anderson just because, one, I mean, he's average against lefties at best, but right-handers really hit him hard. 365 WOBA, but going back to last year, 1.62 home runs per 9. I love Goldschmidt at 4.7.
Yeah, I like Goldschmidt. They're just so priced up, though. It kind of stinks. Maybe a Goldschmidt and Wellington Castillo grouping, something like that, I'd be okay with. I do still like Lamb, but that's expensive. I don't know. I don't know that I'm gonna have a lot of exposure to him tonight just because of that price. And Segura, I don't think I'm gonna have much of him either. So I'm looking at Goldschmidt and Castillo, and probably moving on from there.
Yeah, Castillo's price tag, I mean, under 3K, really nice value piece. I mean, for guys who's hitting fifth in the lineup in a friendly ballpark. And while it's not a lefty, it is a bad right-hander, so I think you can kind of target and feel a little bit comfortable.
Right.
As far as the Brewers go, I mean, they're kind of a little bit out of my price range. I don't mind a Ryan Braun at 4.5. I think he's an intriguing option, but Lucroy 5K seems a little bit out of my range. That's
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. I feel like we're just like watching everyone playing the game, and like I'm just letting everyone go. Yeah. Nope. All right. Let's go. Yeah. Just go. No. Go around. No. I just can't get behind that price. It is a solid matchup, but that's just too much for me. And even Villar, it's like 45. I don't necessarily want to pay that either.
yeah, I mean, Scooter Gannett, I mean, 3.5, not a bad price tag for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really too appealing with the prices in this Milwaukee team, and I do think Braden Shipley's a guy who could have some strikeout upside.
For sure.
Just to kind of get some prices in there. A's and Rangers, we talked about this one a little bit at the beginning of the show.
Such a bummer.
It really is. I mean, you're talking about really the polar opposites between sites as far as pricing, where you're looking at Semien, Valencia, Davis, and Smolinski, who are all on the complete opposite end of the spectrum as far as pricing goes. And here, they are priced up like they do hit lefties well. And while it's a good thing because it does show that the pricing's paying attention, it's also a disappointment because I really wanted to use them as kind of my value core.
Yeah, exactly. In one respect, I respect it. Good on you, DK. That's the correct pricing, but it was kind of nice to have a little relief in one game on FanDuel, with otherwise really expensive pricing. So that's kind of a bummer. I mean, I'm still looking at that Valencia Semi and Smolinski stack. It's just super expensive now.
Yeah, it's much more expensive here, but I do think they're in a great spot. You're just looking at Perez, who's been really horrible over his last handful of starts. I mean, going back to last year, 344 Woba, a lot to right-handers. So I like the A's quite a bit. Definitely a better ballpark for them to hit in. I'm definitely going to be trying to get some of them in my lineups, but a little bit less so here, I guess, just because of the prices.
Right.
So as far as the Rangers go, Mazzara and Profar aren't that bad. It's still a little bit higher, but I definitely don't mind those two as far as what's value now in comparison to the prices we've been talking about.
Yeah, I'm okay with Profar at 38. I like that. And Mazzara, I think they both kind of have some power upside there against Mangden. So, yeah, definitely like those. I'm okay with Beltre at 36. I think you can make a stack with those three and feel pretty good about your upside there.
Yeah, same thing with Odor. I mean, 4.3 is definitely not a bad price tag for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a step down in that average kind of range in comparison to where he was at on FanDuel.
Right. So I think the 1 through 5 here is in play. Obviously, if you want to pay up for Desmond, he's probably worth that price as well, 4,700.
Yeah, it's not too bad there. Yankees and Astros, Dallas Keuchel versus Michael Pineda, and Astros bats were priced down on FanDuel. Here, Springer's the only one, and Springer's been like this for the last couple of days where he's priced in the lower fours. I don't mind Springer here, but now I'm kind of less inclined about taking more shots in the Astros and GPPs than I was on FanDuel.
Yeah, the need isn't really there. Maybe go with a Valbuena again, 3,400, potentially bat second, or a Springer, but Pineda isn't really a guy you necessarily like target, so at these prices it's sort of something you just kind of walk by.
No, when they were at those mid threes on FanDuel, I mean, you felt much better about the possible home run upside against Pineda, who's home run prone. But here it's like, okay, if I'm paying 5.2 for Correa, I've already mentioned over 5K guys who are in better spots, so I might as well go with them instead.
Right, exactly.
As far as the Yankees go, I mean, I think the guys that you would even consider are kind of even priced up like a Beltran. So for me, I'm just kind of staying away from this Yankees team. Even though they do have some value tied to their names, I don't see a lot of production.
Yep, agreed. And you're not really using lefties against Keuchel. So, yeah.
Yeah, he neutralizes a lot in that lineup.
Right.
Cubs and White Sox here. Jake Arrieta probably going to be a top cash game GPP arm to look at tonight. I'm not really looking at the White Sox. I talked about them kind of half-heartedly on FanDuel about, if you wanted to kind of bet on Arrieta blowing up a little bit in a hitter's ballpark, I guess you could. But as you mentioned, it's not something you'll be doing.
It's certainly opportunity to get guys at 1%. or 3 to 5%. I mean, I think that's what they're going to be pretty much across the board. But yeah, I don't really. Yeah, that's just not. No, I don't want to do that. Just don't. No, yeah, that's fine.
We'll look at the Cubs. I mean, they're expensive and to the point where I'm getting a little bit frustrated, kind of going down the line here as far as getting teams because I like Fowler here. He's 480. He's expensive. It's just all kind of out of a price range that I don't feel comfortable using and kind of paying down to pitching. So I like the Cubs. I think they're definitely in play in that ballpark. You're going to get a DH thrown in, which is nice. That's definitely a bonus for them. So overall, I mean, I do like the Cubs. I think they're stack worthy, but they're another team that you got to pay down elsewhere to kind of fit in.
And you can't really even pay down at the end of this lineup. They couldn't have thrown us a crumb with the Bays price. He's still at 3,700, so it's kind of a bummer. I mean, you could always go with Hayward, but we know how that's gone so far this year. So Yeah, it's tough. That is a nice lineup though, and I mean, if you're gonna go with the tournament stack, I'm okay with paying up for them.
Yeah, I am too. And Ben Zobrist and Wilson Contreras, those are probably my favorite prices out of that whole entire lineup.
Yeah, agreed.
Angels and Royals, and I think the Royals are probably going to be the team that I work in as far as value. I mean, just looking at their prices, I mean, if you want to completely punch shortstop, Alcides Escobar is 2,300. Uh, I don't mind that. I don't mind Cuthbert at 3.7. I don't mind Morales at 3.4. Even Perez at 3K. And as we mentioned, I mean, even the back end right-handers, I don't mind.
Yeah, we mentioned on FanDuel this could be a back end type of night for the Royals bats, especially if they get going. Even if the top of the lineup gets going against Hector Santiago, I think that could be a good thing for the entire lineup. So you're looking at some of the cheap guys at the end of that grouping there, and then obviously, like you mentioned, Alcides Escobar can't really beat that price at 23 for a leadoff guy.
As far as Angels bats go, I mean, are you intrigued with any of these guys?
Somewhat. I mean, even a Yunel Escobar at 28, even in a non-perfect matchup, I'm okay with. Just because of that price, and I mean, based on the rest of the lineups there, it's kind of tough. But yeah, Cole Calhoun, sure, but I'm not super intrigued by this team tonight in a cash or really even a tournament sense, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to kind of be picky on. And Cole Calhoun's probably the only one that I might take a shot at, just given his 3.5 price tag. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, the Angels offense, never really a strong upside team. And I think just there's a lot going up against them.
Right.
Reds and Giants here. And I think we can look at the Giants side first because they're all priced under 4K. The offense hasn't really been relatively strong, but I mean, if you look at facing Desclafani, I mean, his real kind of weakness, which isn't really tremendous, but lefties have hit him at a decent rate. I guess I don't mind Span, Pagan, Belt, Crawford. I mean, given they're all 3,600 or cheaper.
Yeah, and Desclafani's been good, but he's given up a homer in each of his last 3 games, and it's not like he's shutting anyone out, you know? So while he has been solid, there is home run upside there. I mean, even a Buster Posey at 3K, a rare night to sort of get him at a reduced price. Even a Belton Crawford, they're all pretty reasonable. And for once, I mean, hey, the Giants are the value for tonight, so I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the team where I'm not on board with the complete stack.
Right.
But I'm looking more so, hey, you know, I might, toss in a Posey or a Pagan to kind of round things off a final touch up. I mean, they might be that final piece of the puzzle just because of their prices.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of like that Belt Crawford grouping as well.
Yeah. As far as the Reds go, I mean, I don't mind Hamilton, Cozart's price tag. Votto's the only one who seems a little bit out of my range, but I don't mind Duvall or Bruce. I mean, PV's been better, but he's still not the greatest right-handed arm. I mean, obviously the ballpark factors are against both sides as far as hitters go, but I think when we're looking for some value and looking for some upside plays, I think I'm willing to knock off and overlook it just because a lot of the pricing on tonight's slate.
It's tough. And so if you're out there doing lineup construction and you're struggling, you're not the only one because this is a tough slate to actually build lineups with. Obviously, you can say, yeah, Donaldson and Encarnacion firing them in. Yeah, well, what are you doing with the rest of your spots, you know? So it is tough. But either way, yeah, I think Cozart's interesting. And Duvall, I mean, under 4K again, you like his power against righties. So I think that's a decent shot as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely with you. Let's kind of wrap things up here with the DraftKings Daily Trot. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all great tools and content.